Hello and welcome back to Bioclass Bites. In this video, we are going to talk about plant form and function. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and like and share this video. These are the unit and lesson titles for this video series. So we have plant form and function, meristems and plant tissues, root, stem and leaf structures, plant reproduction, and plant growth and responses. In this video, we are going to focus on plant form and function. Before anything else, I recommend that you watch this video from Amoeba Sisters entitled Plant Structure and Adaptations. I'll provide the link in the description below. To read more about plants, I recommend that you visit this entry on Encyclopedia Britannica. Everything about plants, everything you need to know, again, linked in the description below. So, what are plants? Plants belong to kingdom Plantae. Kingdom Plantae is one of the current 7 kingdom systems of all living things. This will be thoroughly discussed in the unit on biological diversity. So plant, they belong in Kingdom Plantae. They refer to any multicellular eukaryotic life form. So I hope you know that multicellular means an organism made up of several cells. Eukaryotic means they have cells containing a true nucleus. Multicellular eukaryotic life form, and these are their distinguishing characteristics. Number one, they are capable of photosynthetic nutrition. So, photosynthetic nutrition is a characteristic possessed by all plants except some parasitic and underground plants, in which they are able to perform photosynthesis. They do that, okay, by trapping chemical energy, okay, or producing chemical energy from raw materials such as water, minerals, and carbon dioxide. Okay, with the aid of pigments, usually for green plants, chlorophyll, and trapping the radiant energy or solar energy coming from the sun. So plants mostly are capable of photosynthesis, and that's how they create their nutrition. Number two, plants are organisms that contain cells, and within their cells, they have a rigid cell wall made up of cellulose. Okay, so plants have plant cells. Plant cells have cell walls. Cell walls are made up of cellulose. Okay, this makes the plant cells very rigid. We will learn more about this as we go along. So this diagram shows us the phylogenetic tree, okay, of plants. It shows us the ancestors of plants. Okay, so before cyanobacteria exist separately from other protozoans, but the common ancestors of plants, okay, gave rise to the different forms of plants that we know today. So that there's this group of pigmented plants, okay, different colored plants, okay, they evolve separately, but most plants have the green pigment chlorophyll, so that makes them green plants, which eventually, allowed them to adapt on land. Okay, so because during this part, no, they are mostly found in sea, in oceans, in bodies of water, but through evolution they were able to colonize the land, and thrive there, giving rise to different forms of plants. So that includes non-vascular plants such as your hornworts and mosses and liverworts, so that's the group of bryophytes. And then eventually some of them evolved to have vascular systems, vascular tissues, okay, but they do not have seeds yet. So this gave rise to your pteridophytes, or your seedless vascular plants, ferns, horsetails, and club mosses. Then eventually some of them evolved to have the ability to reproduce not through spores but through seeds. So that gave rise to your seed plants. Okay, and your seed plants are divided into two major groups: gymnosperms, so these are plants with naked seeds with vascular system with seeds, but their seeds are exposed. So these are your gymnosperms, cycads, ginkgos, conifers, and gnetophytes. While you have your angiosperms, okay, so these are plants that were able to produce or to create their flowers as their reproductive structures, which will eventually become the fruits that protects the seed inside. So these are your monocots, eudicots, and other groups of flowering plants. This is a diagram of a typical plant cell. If you still remember your lesson in biology, these are the major parts of a typical cell would include the cell membrane, okay, so cell membrane, the cytoplasm, okay, that where you can find the suspended organelles, and then you have the nucleus. So those are the three major parts of a typical cell. But in plants, we have several adaptations and modifications that allow them to survive in their environment. We've mentioned a while ago that aside from their cell membrane, okay, aside from their plasma membrane or cell membrane, they also have a cell wall. Okay, this very rigid cell wall or very thick cell wall made up of cellulose. Okay, so that cellulose is very important because this makes the plants capable of holding in water within their system, within their vacuoles. So plants have the typical organelles. We've mentioned the nucleus, which contains the genetic material of the plant cell. You have your Golgi apparatus for packaging. You have your mitochondrion, the site of cellular respiration. You have your smooth endoplasmic reticulum, okay, and you have your rough endoplasmic reticulum, both sites of protein synthesis. Then you have your other elements. You have your cytoskeleton, and then of course peroxisomes, and then the very important organelle chloroplast. Okay, so this is the site of photosynthesis. So this is where plants convert raw materials, water and carbon dioxide, into chemical energy with the help of the pigment chlorophyll and trapping the solar energy within those chemical bonds. So this is a diagram of a typical plant cell. How living cells react to changes in solute concentration of their environment depends on whether or not they have cell walls. So we see here a red blood cell, right, to represent an animal cell, and then you have your plant cell, and you can see here very distinctly its cell wall. So animal cells and plant cells react differently to changes in solute concentration since plant cells have cell wall. Before we go in depth into this concept, let's review first some terminologies such as diffusion and osmosis. So diffusion is the movement of molecules from an area of high concentration to an area of low concentration. So for example, these are two regions. So let's say that this is the extracellular region. Okay, so this is the area outside the cell, and this is the intracellular region or the area within the cell. You see them being separated by the cell membrane. For example, we are talking about here specifically sugar molecules. So as you can see, we have more sugar molecules outside the cell compared to the inside of the cell. So diffusion is the movement of these molecules from an area of high concentration to low concentration. So the sugar molecules will move across the cell membrane, okay, towards the cell or into the cell. So we say that diffusion occurs along the concentration gradient. This is the natural tendency of molecular movement from high to low concentration. One good way to visualize it is, for example, one of your classmates sprayed a cologne inside the room, and he is found on one corner of the room, but eventually the scent will spread throughout until it reaches you on the other side of the room. So that's diffusion. The movement of the molecules from the concentrated area where your classmate sprayed his cologne until it reaches your other corner. So that's diffusion. The movement of those perfume molecules from higher to lower concentration. So that's the natural tendency of things. Right? So that could refer to any type of molecule. Now, diffusion only ends, or the movement of the molecules will only end when equilibrium has been met, or in this case, when there are equal number of sugar molecules within and outside the cell. Now, osmosis is the passage of water across a membrane. Okay, similar to diffusion, almost the same thing as diffusion, but it specifically refers to water molecules. So in this example, this could represent any molecule, perfume molecule, salt molecule, sugar molecule, whatever molecule. But in osmosis, we are specifically referring to water molecules. Okay? So the movement of water molecules across a cell membrane, across a membrane. Okay? So again, the direction is from an area of high concentration to an area of low concentration. Now, to learn more about osmosis, I recommend that you watch this video. I'll provide the link in the description below. So, to further visualize how osmosis happens, let's take a look at these terms. So, when we say hypertonic, it's actually a type of solution, okay? A type of solution in which there are more solute, greater solute, compared to the other one, hypotonic solution. So both of these are types of solutions. One has greater solute, okay, concentration than the other. So hyper means above, okay, then hypo below. Okay, so it has higher concentration, solute concentration. So if we are going to give an example for this, this could be for example, this could be two glasses of orange juice. When we say hypertonic solution, it has higher solute concentration. So this could be more orangey in flavor or more sweet, okay, or more sour. Then the other one, hypotonic, it has lesser solute concentration. So it does not have that orange taste that much, or it's not as sweet. It almost tastes like water. For example, if these are soy sauce, hypertonic solution has a very salty content. Okay, it's very salty. Then the hypotonic solution, not so salty. So the solute there is the one that's dissolved within the solvent. Okay, so hypertonic solution has more solute than hypotonic solution. So it's more salty, more sweet, okay, more sour than the hypotonic one. So let's apply that. So the solution, for example, if you put this cell that has 20% sucrose solution, so that's sugar, okay? So it has a content of 20% sugar. So the other one, the other component is 80% water. So it only has 80% water. The other 20%, to make it 100, is made up of sugar molecule. So that's your solute. So if you put this cell within the solution of pure water, we can say that the environment inside the cell is a hypertonic one because it has more solute, 20% sucrose, more 20% solute compared to its environment, a hypotonic solution wherein it has zero sugar molecule. So this one has higher solute concentration compared to the other one. You can also look at the percentage of the water. So here within the cell, you only have 80% water inside. Then outside, you have 100%. Since it's pure water, 100% water outside the cell. So what will be the movement of molecules then? So water will travel by osmosis, okay? It will travel by osmosis from a hypotonic environment to a hypertonic environment. So the movement will be from the outside, higher concentration of water, 100%, it will move into the cell from 100 to 80%. Okay? So assuming that the membrane is permeable to water, but not to sucrose, water molecules will begin to move inside the cell from 100% concentration outside to 80% concentration inside. So that will be the movement of water. Now, again, similar to diffusion, this process will continue until an equilibrium has been reached. Let's go back to this diagram. So again, hypotonic solution, it means that it has lesser solute concentration. Hypertonic solution, it has more solute concentration. When we say isotonic, it has almost equal number of solute concentration within and outside the cell. So we mentioned that living cells react differently to solute concentration based on the existence of cell walls, if they have cell walls or not. So animal cells, in this case a red blood cell, they do not have a cell wall, right? So because of that, they fare better, okay? They fare best in an isotonic environment. So it means that there's equal amount of water molecules within and outside the cell. So when placed in an isotonic solution, there will be an equal amount of water going in and outside the cell. The red blood cell will be normal. A red blood cell when placed in a hypotonic solution, okay, will not survive, okay, because water, okay, similar to our example a while ago, no, water will move from an area of higher concentration to an area of lower concentration. So water will move into the cell, causing it to burst, okay, because you have higher concentration outside than the inside. So water will water molecules will move into the red blood cell, causing it to burst, to swell, eventually burst. Now, when you place a red blood cell in a hypertonic solution, it means that it has very high solute concentration. Okay, for example, very salty solution. It will cause the red blood cell to shrivel and eventually die. Okay, because the movement will be from the water concentration, from greater concentration into lower concentration outside. So it will cause the water molecules to leave the red blood cell. Plants, on the other hand, will not have these dramatic changes, okay? Because they owe it to the presence of their cell wall. So if animal cells fare best in an isotonic solution, plant cells, on the other hand, are healthiest in a hypotonic solution or hypotonic environment wherein they have more water uptake, okay? So for example, if you place a plant in a hypotonic solution, okay, lesser concentration, for example, regular water, okay, for example. So the movement will be the water molecule from outside the cell will go inside the cell, okay, causing it to be turgid, okay, or stiff, okay, or rigid. And they will not swell and then eventually burst, just like this one, because the cell wall protects that from happening. So this ability to take in more water actually allows the cell to utilize more water, and then they do not burst easily because of their cell wall. When placed in an isotonic solution, the plant cell will become flaccid, okay, or limp, okay, because there will be just equal amount of water molecules going in and out of the cell. But when placed in a hypertonic solution, salty or sweet environment, or very high solute concentration, water will move similar to animal cells. Now, water will move from within the cell outside, okay, from higher concentration to lower concentration. It will cause them to plasmolyze. Okay, again, a hypertonic solution has greater solute concentration relative to a hypotonic solution. Because of this, water will travel by osmosis from hypotonic to a hypertonic environment. So, for example, no, this is your cell. Okay, when placed in a hypertonic solution, it means that you have more solute concentration outside. In this case, NaCl, so that's salt. NaCl, more solute concentration outside the cell. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 molecules outside, and then you only have 2 NaCl or salt molecules within the cell. Okay? So this one, we can say that a hypertonic solution could be saltier outside than inside the cell. So it has more solute concentration outside. A hypotonic solution has lesser solute concentration. You only have 2. So it's the opposite. You only have 2 NaCl molecule outside. And then you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 molecules inside of salt molecules inside. A sodium chloride molecule inside. So the movement will be from higher concentration to lower concentration of water. Then an isotonic solution, you have equal number. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 sodium chloride molecule outside, 5 sodium chloride inside. So we have here equal number of solute concentration. So again, um, a red blood cell, when placed in a hypertonic solution, will cause it to plasmolyze or undergo plasmolysis, because the movement would be from higher water concentration inside, moving outward, okay, moving out of the cell, okay, causing it to shrivel. Okay, so since the water is leaving the cell, it will shrivel up. When placed in a hypotonic solution, okay, we have lesser solute concentration outside, um, compared to the inside of the cell. So the movement of the water molecule will be into the cell from a region of higher concentration towards inside, towards a region of lower concentration. This will cause the cell to swell and then eventually burst. An isotonic solution, you have equal number of solute concentration, so there will be equal movement of water molecule in and out of the cell. I recommend that you watch this video from Bogo Biology. Okay, I'll provide the link in the description below. When a plant cell is immersed in a hypotonic solution, for example, rainwater, the cell wall helps maintain the cell's water balance. Okay, so we've mentioned this, no? That plant cells are generally healthiest in a hypotonic environment. So in this case, rainwater. So the water molecule will move into the cell. Okay? So like an animal cell, the plant will swell but will not burst. Okay? Okay? It will not burst, okay, because of the presence of the cell wall. Okay? The inelastic cell wall will expand so much before it exerts back a pressure on the cell called turgor pressure that opposes further water intake. Okay? So this is why, plant cells will not burst just like an animal cell, because they have the cell wall to prevent that from happening. Okay, so the turgor pressure allows the cell to oppose further water intake. So this will cause the plant cell to be turgid or very firm, and that is the healthy state for most plant cells. Okay, so again, no, hypotonic solution, plants can take in water, but it will not cause them to burst, just like an animal cell, because the cell wall prevents that from happening. So the cells of this healthy plant are turgid, okay, or firm. Okay, but when exposed to a hypertonic solution, when we expose plants in a hypertonic solution, okay, water will leave the cell, cause the plant cell, causing them to shrink, okay, or plasmolyze. Okay, okay, they become plasmolyzed as they lose water. If that continues to happen, it will eventually cause the plant cell to die, and then the actual organism will also eventually die. Okay, so this happens when the plant is not watered regularly. Okay, it will cause the extracellular cellular fluid to become isotonic, then eventually hypertonic, causing the water to leave the cell. Okay, just like this one, causing to leave the cell, and this results into the loss of turgor pressure, which we will see as wilting in plants. Okay. So, for example, this one is how a plant will look like in a hypotonic surrounding. Healthy, turgid, the plant cells are filled with water, but they're not swelling because of their cell wall. This is how plants will look like, wilting, when they are placed in a hypertonic solution. When it starts off with an isotonic, then eventually become a hypertonic solution, they will wilt like this. And then if they are not watered anymore, they are no longer in a hypotonic solution, the plant will wilt and eventually die. Okay, so plants are healthiest when placed in a hypotonic solution. Here are more descriptions of plants. They essentially have unlimited growth at localized regions, and we will talk more about this meristematic cells as we go along. They also have no organs for locomotion. Okay, so that results into plants being rooted on the spot, having more or less a stationary existence. Okay, you do not see plants walking around. Okay, they do not have nervous systems. Okay, and their life histories show an alternation of generation, an alternation of haploid and diploid generation. Okay, and we will learn more about this when we go to plant life cycles. Now we see here an overview of a flowering plant. So these are the parts of a typical flowering plant. Everything that you find below the soil, that's part of the root system. Everything that you find above the soil, that's the shoot system. So the root system, of course, includes the roots, okay? Then the shoot system, you have your stem, you have your leaves, okay? Then you have your fruits and flowers, and then fruits. So those are the parts, major parts of a plant, okay? As we go along, we will look into these different parts of the shoot system. We've mentioned that plants are very adept in performing photosynthesis. Okay, it's actually their major characteristic. Now, to learn more about photosynthesis, or to just recap what you've learned about photosynthesis in grade 8, I recommend that you watch this video from TED Ed, Nature's Smallest Factory, the Calvin cycle. I'll provide the link in the description below. This one also, a simple story of photosynthesis and food, still from TED Ed. Very informative. Again, you can find the link in the description below. The plant kingdom is a way to classify or organize plants. Okay, so they are divided into groups based on the traits that they have in common. Okay, we have a wide variety of plants, but they can be grouped into several categories based on their similar characteristics. So these are the two main groups of plants: vascular plants and non-vascular plants. Vascular plants, they have stem and veins that allows them to transport food and water. So vascular plants have vascular tissues. Non-vascular plants, they have no vascular tissues. So they have no roots, no stems, and no leaves. So these are the two main groups of plants. So vascular plants can be divided into smaller groups: seedless and seed plants. Okay, so seedless, okay, so these are plants that these are vascular plants that do not have seeds. So they do not produce through seeds. So mostly they have spores. Okay, so that's how they reproduce. Seed plants include your flowering and non-flowering plants. So flowering plants, these are your monocots, or one seed leaf, mono one cot here for cotyledon, so one seed leaf. Eudicots, so these are your true dicots, so they have two seed leaves. Okay, so more about this later. Non-flowering plants are your vascular plants with seeds, but they do not produce flowers as their reproductive structures. So you have your cycads, conifers, and ginkgos in this group. Now, this one is a very interesting video from one of my favorite YouTube channel, PBS Eons, how plants caused the first mass extinction. Okay, you might think that plants are, just rooted on the spot, not doing so much, but they actually shaped the evolution of life on our planet. I require that you watch this video. I'll provide the link in the description below. This one is another video, still from PBS Eons, entitled History's Most Powerful Plants. Okay, so this one is very interesting. I recommend that you watch it. I'll provide the link in the description below. This one is from Fuse School, Plant Classification. Okay, another interesting video. You'll learn more about this. So please watch this one. I'll provide the link in the description below. Now this one is a research paper written by John DeVries and published in New Phytologist. Okay, so it shows us plant evolution, or the landmarks on the path to terrestrial life. So this was published in 2018. So what he says here is that molecular phylogenetic data show that land plants evolved from streptophyte algae, most closely related to extant Zygnomatophyceae. One of the principal aims of plant evolutionary biology is to uncover the key features of how modern plants evolved from such algae. Okay, so what this paper is telling us, and you can actually go to this research journal page. I'll provide the link in the description below. It shows us that um, the plants we know today are actually originated or actually descendants of those algae coming from the sea or the ocean. So this one is in a confirmation of what we've known so far. So it shows us the streptophyte terrestrialization and colonization of terrestrial habitat. Okay, so we see here that 1 billion years ago, the green lineage Chloroplastida split into chlorophytes and streptophytes. Okay, so chlorophytes, so this is the group of chlorophytes which eventually give rise to your algae. Okay, then this one is the group of streptophytes. Then slowly from the water, from the sea, okay, they eventually adapt to life on land. So they eventually develop characteristics that allow them to survive so far from the water. Okay, they were able to survive drought, high irradiance from the sun, terrestrial stressors, and continuously evolve into the different varieties of plants we know today. So the ancestors of modern day terrestrial plants can be found in salt water from their ancestors chlorophytes and streptophytes. So this shows us also, again, the highlights of plant evolution. So all plants we've known, already know that all plants have an ancestral green alga about 470 million years ago. And eventually it's split off into different groups. So you have your non-vascular plants, so that you have your liverworts and hornworts, okay, and mosses. Then you have your vascular plants, but seedless vascular plants. So you have your lycophytes, spike mosses, club mosses. Then seedless vascular plants. Still, you have your ferns, horsetails, and whisk fern. Then, so that's around 425 million years ago. Then 360 million years ago, you have your evolution of seed plants, gymnosperms, and angiosperms. Okay, so this is the group of non-vascular plants. This is the group of seedless vascular plants, and this is the group of seed plants. And as you can see, non-vascular plants are older than the others. Okay, they are followed by your seedless vascular plants, and relatively younger, you have your seed plants, gymnosperms, and angiosperms. Although the similarities between a cactus, an orchid, and a tree might not be obvious, all of them have the basic unity of structures. Okay, so in this unity is reflected on how the plants are structured and constructed, the way they grow, manufacture food, and transport their food, and of course reproduce and develop. So in this unit, okay, mostly we will be focusing on the structure of a vascular plant. Okay, so since they are the ones with the more complicated body plants. Okay, so the focus will be on the diversity of an adult vascular plant body and what happens. Okay, what happens as they undergo development through embryogenesis. That ends our video. I hope you learned something new. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and like and share this video. Till next time, goodbye.